ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Men to Men podcast. I'm Malik Carey, along with my co-host Brett Carroll. Brett, what's going on, man? Can you believe we on the 11th episode?
Time flies when you're having fun, my brother. Time flies.
Yes, sir. What's going on today, bro?
Look, I'm real excited about today's podcast. You and I have gone back and forth on a couple of occasions, and we're going to go back and forth on this particular occasion as well. You know, wealth building is very, very significant and very important because it's the process of generating long-term income through multiple sources of income. And, you know, wealth building allows us to do a couple of things, Malik. Number one, it allows some of us to survive. It allows others to sustain ourselves. It allows others to create generational wealth. And to your point, it allows some to become affluent. And so we're going to talk. So anybody can do it. Anybody can build wealth. Right?
Yes.
Anybody can do it. It takes a burning desire to do it. It takes strong will and determination. And it takes a great wealth building plan.
You know, Brett, thanks so much, man. We're going to really bring it out. I really think about what wealth building is and what it really means, you know. And for me, you know, the first step in really providing wealth for our families. And I know we're talking a lot about just, you know, statistics. We bring a lot of that in. But as African Americans, we are the lowest on the totem pole. And I want to start with that so that we can build on this. You know what? Number one, we must have monthly income, right? You got to get that part down first, right? So making sure that you have monthly income, making sure that you have a savings plan, you know, those are the number one things, right? Plan and work to eliminate debt. Definitely. I mean, these are things that are really crucial. Establish good credit. And when you establish good credit, it's not just go spend it on credit cards. It's to build some type of credit. So when you need those things, when you need a good emergency fund, when you need things that you can rely on. So that to me is very important. Begin and continue to build a retirement fund. You know, one day we're going to all, you know, take a step back. I don't always talk about retirement. You know how I feel about retirement, Brett. But, you know, really understanding that we need a plan. And it all starts with a plan. Invest in real estate, stocks, bonds, index funds. Get to know what those things mean. And for me, and it's really important to be able to say this, start early talking to your children. Learn about the stock market. Learn about these things. One of the assignments I always give my young people is to go and look at tell me what the bulls and the bears in the market mean. What does a bull market mean? What does a bear market mean? You know, I started my son with that very early. Understanding why real estate is important. Understanding what stocks to buy and what times to buy them. You know, really starting to really do your homework. Really understand what the market's all about. We don't have a clue as a people, and I'm not generalizing, so don't want to do that. But really just understanding the basics, the basic steps on building wealth, right? For aggressive investors, you know, start a business. You know, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, entrepreneurship. We're not going to harp on that today as much, but really understanding what entrepreneurship is and creating for others, creating in businesses, investing in businesses that are already been established, invest in partnerships. You know, you may have someone that we talked about last week that you may know that's starting a business and you may believe in that business, you know, put some money up. And, you know, look at franchises. Franchises are really, really important. And so when we start to think about those things, those are the basic things that we can do in the beginning to start that wealth building process.
Look, those are great points. And let me just piggyback on a couple of points you made earlier. So the whole thing about having income, and you and I, we go back and forth on this, which is fun. And I love doing it. But when you say income, you got to have plus monthly income. And what we mean by plus monthly income is once you finish paying all your bills, you have money left over for savings. If you're only paying your bills and you're only living month to month, no way you can begin the wealth building process. The other thing I wanted to just kind of piggyback on is the whole concept around debt, paying off your debt. You can't build wealth
If you're in debt.
if you're in debt. It's that simple. I know people, and they're good people, and they do the right things all the time, but they're in debt. And I'm not knocking them. I'm not criticizing anybody, but I keep telling them over and over again, listen, in order to move upward, you got to get out of debt. Because as long as you have debt, you don't have wealth.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? Right. As long as you have debt, there's no surplus. And then the third thing I wanted to just double down on is the whole concept of being able to save. If you earn $1 and you spend 80 cents, save 20. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter how much you make. It's your ability and your willingness to save something every single month.
Yeah, and I want to talk to that too. Yeah, and really, what about? I'm going to talk about the T word or giving. That should be important in that also, right? And I like that 80-20, right? So I give 10% away, I save 10%, and I live off of 80. That's a really good rule, believe it or not.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we're talking about these things because these are principles and these are rules that you can follow if you want to build wealth. And so once you get past your ability and your willingness to save 10% or whatever it is, 5%, 7%, 20%, or whatever it is, then you begin to plan for retirement savings. See, there's two different kinds of savings. One savings is I'm saving for emergency, right? You talked last week about being able to tuck away 6 months worth of income or 6 months worth of savings for emergencies. Absolutely must be able to save to the extent that you can create an emergency fund. Mm-hmm. All right, that's point one. When you finish funding your emergency fund, now it's time to begin to save for retirement. And so I just want to take a quick minute to talk about how you go about the whole strategy around retirement. You need to max out your 401k. If you have a job and a 401k is being offered to you, max it out if you can. If you can only put in 3%, that's fine, live with that. If you can put in 6% with your company match, that's great, live with that. If you're allowed to go up to a 10% and you can afford to do it, max it out. Trust me, over time, we talked about compounded interest. Over time, that 10% that you save is going to compound interest monthly, quarterly, annually, and you'll be surprised how much you wind up having 2 years, 5 years, 10 years later. Then you want to be able to begin the concept of kind of getting into a traditional IRA or even a Roth IRA. The traditional IRAs are taxable when you use the money. The Roth IRAs are tax-free. They're tax-free because they're taxed up front. They're both great savings investment tools in addition to your 401k and in addition to your emergency funds. And for you new investors out there, for those of you who might listen to this and might say, you know what, I need to start investing. I need to start thinking about my future. I need to start wealth building. You haven't done it yet? For new investors, there's this thing called robo-advisors. And what robo-advisors do is they help you plan your long-term financial goals. Number two, they help you assess your long-term risk tolerance. Each of us is different. But look, I know for a fact, knowing you, you are a risk taker, and I love that about you. I'm very conservative.
Yes, and in knowing your risk tolerance is really important. And then there's another great book also, as we're talking about that, called The Psychology of Money. And that's really a great book also because it really delves into building wealth. Understanding that Rich Dad, Poor Dad, if you're looking at that book as far as a great book on real estate. And he doesn't just really talk about real estate. He talks about the 4 quadrants, And so really understanding what that looks like, pick up books. There are a lot of great books on helping young investors and older people. So really reading is fundamental also. Let's talk about that. Go ahead.
The reading is fundamental. The robo-advisor, just a couple more quick points about that. The other thing that they do is they help you create a portfolio. And I know a lot of people are afraid of the whole idea of, I don't understand finances. I don't understand the stock market. I don't understand this. I don't understand that. But you get yourself a robo advisor, and what they do is they create your portfolio for you. They'll create your stock and your bond and other investment tools, and they will invest for you based on your risk tolerance and based on your long-term financial goals. Critically important. And finally, around retirement, this is just my humble opinion. What I love about robo advisors more than anything else, they rebalance your portfolio. So we're going through all these ups and downs, mostly downs over the last year and a half, with the economy being what it is and with inflation being what it is. On a regular basis, these robo advisors, they're rebalancing your portfolio for you. So they're minimizing your losses and minimizing your risk. And then at the end of the day, they wind up buying and selling your stocks and bonds on your behalf based on your long-term goals, based on your risk tolerance, and based on what's going on in the market. So I say all that to pretty much say that you want to be able to get these robo-advisors if you are new to investing or want to get into investing, or for that matter, haven't invested well.
Right, and then also look at some of the I'm talking to the young guys and some of the younger investors. Go sit down with, even if it's a wealth manager. Get to know them. Let them. Look at some of the agencies that are out here that are doing really well. And I'm not talking about someone who's new, but look at some of the market, some of the and the wealth managers that are out here, and you can start at any point. The earlier you start, the better. Yeah. So definitely really start doing that, and then also look at doing a SWOT analysis, right? In order for you to be better prepared to understand what wealth building and to have success about it, we all need to do this, which is called the SWOT analysis, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunity, and threats. And I'm talking about doing this on yourself, not just on anyone else, but on yourself. SWOT analysis helps you to understand these things. They help your strengths. Know your strengths. Know your tolerance. Right? What are your strengths? What do you bring to the table? Are you able to go out and, really hustle to make that type of money? Right? My strength is, hey man, if I got to go drive Uber and I got to go, as we talked about early on, that plus money, how do I go create that plus money for myself? Do I got to go get a second job if I'm young? Do I go hustle? Do I have that hustle in me? Or in my weaknesses, am I the person who it gets out of bed late, or am I the person who, I'm risk averse, right? And those things are important, so that's a part of and I'm not going to talk about weakness in a negative way. I'm just talking about it. And we all have weaknesses, every last one of us. And so understanding what your weaknesses are helps you to gain a better understanding of what my risk tolerance is, what I'm averse to, in knowing those things, right? And then opportunities. Realize that what opportunities that are in front of you, what opportunities do you have? There are a lot of, even in these economies, even in these markets, it's a lot of money out here. And then, go look, use your car today, right? You got a car, you struggling to pay, turn that thing into a moneymaker. I got friends right now and they do really well for themselves. These guys are 6-figure dudes, but you know what they do on the weekend? First of all, they love to drive. They went and bought a second car. I got a couple of dudes like this. And all weekend, they just hustling, making an extra $60,000 a year in Ubering. Those are things that you got to think about when we talk about opportunities. DoorDash and all of it's so many opportunities for us in front of us today that there's really no excuse, so look at all of the opportunities, right? Don't be afraid to say, you know what? Hey, I did it for a little while. I was building this business, man. I would get up at 4:00 in the morning and I would drive Uber till 10 o'clock, go home, take a shower, come in here and work for 12 hours. Do what you got to do. Right?
I love that. I love that story because, when you talk about wealth building, and I really appreciate you saying that, it's about hustling. Mm-hmm. It's about getting your hustle on, but it's a smart hustle. It's a hustle with a plan. And we're going to talk a little bit about the plan a little bit later, but I want to come back to something real quickly. When you talk about your SWOT analysis, when Malik talks about knowing your strengths, we're talking about knowing your financial strengths, knowing what your assets are, knowing what, where your finances are, and understanding whether you have other resources or not, whether you have other support groups or not that can help you accomplish whatever it is you want to accomplish from a financial, from a wealth building standpoint of view, from a saving standpoint of view, from the standpoint of view of being able to accumulate
assets. Exactly. And then the T, threats, right? Be aware of the threats that prevent you from successfully building your wealth, right? Is that, and again, what is a threat? I'm just looking at it. A threat can be that, that debt is in front of me, right? Those are great things. So that's a threat, right? That my spending habits are important, right? That's a threat. Can I sacrifice going to buy that new pair of Jordans or that new whatever, that new video game or that new car right now? Do I need to do these things, right? And and again, when we look at this, these are things that we need to be able to do. And sitting down with a financial counselor will be able to help you go through those things. Dave Ramsey does some really great stuff as far as, especially for young entrepreneurs and Christian entrepreneurs. What else is, and we'll talk about this, which we haven't talked about, is even looking at when you talk about your threats. Am I working a 9-to-5 that's killing me? Right? These are things that, do I have energy to get up after that? And my health, that's a threat. Do I have the energy to push through those times when, I do got to be hustling and I got to get out here and I got to hustle and I got to do the things. So understand, again, my SWOT is strengths, weaknesses, opportunity, and threats.
Yeah. And when it comes to the concept around threat, Malik can make a good point. How about, am I a threat to myself? And what do I mean by that? Is it my attitude, my work ethic, or my poor attitude, or my poor work ethic? Do I get in my own way? And when Malik talks about SWOT analysis, the most important thing you can ask yourself is a really, really simple question. What is it about me or my situation that leads to or can lead to me being a successful wealth builder? Or from a weakness standpoint of view, what is it about me, my work ethic, my attitude, my behavior, my knowledge or lack thereof? What is it about me that would prevent me from building wealth? So you want to make sure you look at those things when you do your own SWOT analysis. And it's a hard thing to do, Malik, because, hey, look, none of us want to look in a mirror. None of us want to do a deep dive on what we're good at, what we're weak at. None of us want to admit that we're not where we want to be or need to be. But in order to build wealth, in order to be successful in anything, man, you got to look in the mirror and say, I'm good at this. That's great. I'm not so good at this, and I don't know that much about that. Better get my homework done if I want to be successful. Otherwise, I'm stuck. You know what I'm saying? You understand what I'm saying? Also want to just say real quickly about something that might be helpful to some of us who aren't in the financial position that other people might be in. There's this thing called a secured credit. This is with respect to credit. You don't have no credit, you can't build wealth. Simple as that.
Exactly.
And the way to build credit for those of us who have no credit or poor credit is to get a secured credit card. And what that is very simple. You get a certain amount of cash, you put it on the account on this card, and as you pay your bills, if you fail to pay your bills, the cash you put into this account is collateral. They basically pay your bills for you. And if you don't go through all that cash, and if you don't go through all that collateral, then you're allowing yourself to become eligible to get a regular credit card. And when you get a regular credit card, then you can go about the business of building your.
Yeah, exactly. And even looking at like a small credit limit, like a Capital One or a high interest rate, just pay it off monthly, spend what you can, the credit card is, and look at it as a tool. Look at it as, I remember, and this was years and years and years ago when I was a young guy, I had a $500 credit card. Today, that thing is upwards. It's a lot of money on there. But I started with a $500 limit. use your credit card wisely and say, you know what, this is just a tool. It's not something that is going to be long term. I'm using this as a tool because, again, this is we're talking about wealth building plan. We're talking about building wealth. We're not talking about, we're talking about long term and defining what wealth is, right? Wealth is prosperity. It's being able to be comfortable, not having to worry about money, right? And we have to have these tough conversations around money, around wealth, because again, as African Americans, we spend $2 trillion a year, but yet we're the lowest. And I'm not trying to bring doom and gloom. I'm just talking reality. And so we want to start building wealth. We want to have these conversations because these conversations weren't always being had. And so really understanding why we're having this conversation, it's because we want to see financial freedom. I mean, and we want to be able to talk about what that means. And it doesn't mean that everyone's going to have, and I'm going to say everybody's going to have $1 million laying around or 2 million or 5 million. It's not about it's not the number. We're not going to put a dollar on it because wealth to me means something totally different than Brett. I know a lot of people who make different dollar signs and I know people who make millions of dollars and they're in debt. So it's not about the dollar sign. It's about the freedom.
Yeah. And the big thing, and Malik, you made a good point. And the big thing about wealth building, and understand this, guys, it's a process. Wealth building is not the end result. Wealth building is the process that you implement to go from wherever you are to a better place. And so as we said it earlier, and I want to say it again, wealth building is results in a couple things. It results in somebody who is not doing well, who can get to a point where he can now take care of himself and his family. And wealth building can also, and I know I'm repeating myself, but I think it bears wealth repeating. Wealth building also means that I'm doing okay, but now I've implemented this wealth building process. Now I'm financially well off. Now I can fund a retirement fund. Now I can retire. Now I can have money
to take trips and go on vacations and do the things that I want to do. And again, so we're not talking about short term here. We're talking about things that are really long term. Brett, my saying, overnight success takes 20 years. All right, this is not an overnight fix. These things take time. And again, the younger you start, the earlier you start, the better. And you start where you are, right? Even if you're older and you want to just start understanding that you can get out of debt at any point. You got to work hard. You got to do those things and focus on your long-term plan, whatever that means for you. If you're 60 and you want to retire in 10 years, you know what? For the next 10 years, we're gonna focus on this. If you're married, come together, talk about it. And I know so many people, I spent a lot of time in the mortgage business, right? And I saw so many people, our people, who did not understand finances, and they weren't young either, And so understanding and being able to do that. Go to buying seminars, home buying seminars. Look at why we want to invest in real estate. You know what? If I got 3 investment properties and they're generating $3,000 a month after that's $3,000 a month passive income. Those are things we want to talk about. We want to talk about passive income. We want to talk about why it's important to have passive income, because that's the passive income that gives me the extra money to fund something. Passive income is the income that I have over and above my regular expenses. So if I got my check coming in, or I got money coming in and it's taking care of my bills, passive income sees that to say, hey, you know what? This is money that's coming in that I can do other things with. It doesn't affect my budget. It doesn't affect my pocketbook. It doesn't affect my home. It increases my home. It increases my ability to create wealth because it's passive. It just keeps coming in. And so we want that's a great question, Brett. So that's what passive income is. We want passive income. We want that income that's working for us.
Right. It's the income that you don't work for. It's the income
that works for you.
That works for you. It's the income that you've already made, and now it's compounding interest.
That's right.
And it comes in the form of
stocks, real
stock,
estate,
yep.
right? The things that we talked about, right? If I got real estate investment properties, and real estate investment properties, oh, I don't want to do the headaches. I don't want to do the work. You know what? Get some great ones, turn it over to a management company, let them do it, give them a couple of dollars, trust them, and you can still make money. There's so many things. Don't limit yourself. That's one of the things that I always tell. Don't limit your possibilities because there are so many possibilities.
Yeah, and the key to wealth building, as I said in the opener, it's a process of generating, to Malik's point, long-term income through multiple sources.
Multiple streams
Passive
of income.
Income is any income that you make that is exclusive of your job. So if I'm a painter and I make $50,000 a year as a painter, any money that I make where I'm not painting is passive income. And to your point, it could be rental income. I could own a grocery store, any stock, any bond, any certificates I have, anything, as long as every single month is getting compound interest. Every single month, compound interest. My mother used to always say to us, ain't nothing like passive income. Just sitting there eating dinner and saying, okay, I just made an extra $3. It's way back in the day. Just made an extra $6 sitting here eating dinner because money is growing compound interest.
And then you know what? You had a mother talking to you about that though, right?
That's true.
Okay.
That's true. That's true. And so here's the other thing I wanted to talk about when it comes to some of us who may have low incomes or some of us who may want to begin the process of wealth building. If you are looking at that so-called secured credit card that I was talking about a couple of minutes ago, a couple of other places, a couple of other sources you might want to tap into. There are community banks that you could use to establish credit. There are community development financial institutions that you could use to establish credit. And of course, we all know about local credit unions. Those three institutions are the best places for people with low income or low or no credit to begin the process of establishing credit that's either with a secured credit card or without.
And after you do that, right? After we've done our SWOT analysis, after we've looked at all of those things, we want to begin to really look at, making sure, again, we talked about it, making sure that you have that steady plus income. That is so important because that's going to give you the biggest freedom besides my health is financial freedom, right? Exactly. Right. It definitely is that, right? We want to be able to talk about that, making sure, and again, having a budget, really sitting down and and sometimes tightening that budget. If you're going out to dinner 3 times a week, maybe you go out 1 time a week, understanding what that's about, creating a savings plan. Again, it's a plan. Everything we're talking about is a plan. If you plan to succeed, you won't fail. Right. And so
either you plan to fail
or you plan to succeed. Right.
Oh, I did it backwards. It's backwards. If you fail to plan, then plan to fail.
That's right.
Say that 3 times. If you fail to plan, then plan to fail.
Doing your research, starting that monthly plan, understanding, why I need to invest in the markets, understanding what the markets are all about. Really want to do, I know we talked about this before, but, starting an investment early so that you can earn money, take advantage of the 401k programs. We talked about that. And then really just thinking about future generations. Why am I doing this? Right? Why am I doing this? They said a good man leaves his children's children an inheritance. Insurance policies, we haven't talked about that. That's really important. Understanding that insurance policy is important. How much is that going to cost me per month? How much is that going to cost me as far as understanding what that insurance policy is going to do for my generations to come? And so really looking at that, looking at the opportunities that are in front of us. What else you got for me, Brett?
Well, the most important thing, I think, when you talk about building a plan is just making sure that if you're starting out and you don't wholeheartedly understand what you're doing, get yourself a financial planner. Mm-hmm. What the financial planner will do is basically two things. He'll make sure that you have your personal saving plan in place. That's number one. Number two, he'll make sure that you are positioned to, on a monthly basis, have what we call plus monthly income. And what that means is, here are all my expenses. Here's what I make on a monthly basis. And I'm going to position myself by either cutting my spends, or I'm going to position myself so that I can have $1 or $100 or $200 left over every given month.
That's the budget.
And that's a budget. And that's creating a budget, and that's adhering to a budget. And I think that's very, very important. And I just want to double down on what Malik talked about a minute ago. And that's recognizing that there are certain business opportunities out there for you. You have local business opportunities that are in your neighborhood that you might want to tap into because you have that extra money, because you have those assets, those financial, what we call financial liquid assets. Mm-hmm. Liquid assets, as you know, are assets that you can pretty much make a phone call or go online and get cash, within 3 to 5 business days, and use that cash to buy into a bakery, a local bakery, or whatever, a liquor store, or a fast food restaurant, or whatever it is you want to buy into. And you want to look at national opportunities too. A lot of those are franchises. Now we're talking about people who have some cash here. We're talking about people who have already built wealth and have money to spend. You know the old conversation, you know the old saying, I got money to burn. Mm-hmm. Now we're talking about people who have money to burn. And so you're looking at these franchises, you're looking at these national business opportunities to invest in. What I like about those kind of things, Malik, is I love the idea of saying, here's money. Malik, you're a specialist. This is what you do. You're successful. You're making money. Let me throw some cash at you so I can get a return on investment off of your expertise, off of your hard work, off of your sweat, off of your labor. I like the idea of being a quote unquote silent partner.
That's it.
Or
an investor.
Or
right?
investor, yeah.
Right. And that's when you go to build, profitable assets, right? You want to look at assets that become profitable. You want to understand what assets are, so that you can begin to leverage and put yourself in positions to have the greater opportunities that are coming around to be able to invest in profitable assets, knowing why profitable assets are important, right? So we've created a steady income. We've eliminated debt. We started a savings plan. We've created home ownership. We began to invest, and now we want to start asset accumulating. Right? That's when we want to start understanding what are my assets, liabilities, assets. And listen, a brand new car is not an asset. Okay. Now I can turn that car into an asset if I go out in Uber, if I go out and do the things I need to do for this car. But a brand new car is the least thing that you should be worrying about. I can't tell you the last time I bought a brand new car. I wait for 3 years. I let them depreciate. I let somebody else drive them, and then I go buy them.
Yeah, the most important thing. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. It's good because we think, oh, it's a car. It's a car. No, it's a depreciating asset. It's a depreciating whatever. It depreciates. It has no value.
It's the anti-asset.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the anti-asset.
Yeah.
So I have to put that out there because so many people don't know that. They go buy a brand new car. As soon as you drive it off the lot, it's depreciated in value. Right. And so understanding that, when we talk about asset accumulation, things that bring in money.
Yeah. And when we talk about wealth building, it's a mindset, Malik. Mm-hmm. It's,
good job. Yep.
Do I care more about this shiny new toy that's going to give me pleasure today and tomorrow, but have no value a week later or a month later or a year later? But more importantly, does this, if I keep doing something like that, does this does this prevent me from saving, investing, and wealth accumulation? Because let's face it, if I'm spending my discretionary money on things that give me temporary joy, temporary happiness, I'm forfeiting my opportunity to save consistently over time. I'm forfeiting my opportunity to accumulate wealth, and I'm forfeiting my opportunity to create generational wealth.
Generational wealth. And that's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about wealth for today and going tomorrow. We want to think about, what am I leaving my children's children, my nieces, my nephews, whoever, and not to think, we want to talk about trust. These are things that we want to really look at, and I'm just going to say this. If you are having problems with money, if you are having these problems and these challenges, look at some of your own unresolved issues. Go deal with those, right? Because we all have mindsets about money. Some people have a poverty mindset. I get what I get and I spend it all. Now, that's not something that's healthy, so you want to look at those things. But again, we're talking about generational wealth. We're talking about leaving a legacy for your family. We're talking about mindset, and mindset changes.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And so
the whole concept about legacy, I want to talk about that real quick. Listen, isn't it important to stop the bleeding, so to speak? Isn't it important for me to do a little bit better than my parents? And don't you want your kids to do a little bit better than you? And don't you want their kids to do a little bit better than them? The only way that's going to happen, and we're talking about finances now, we're not talking about being good people, we're talking about finances, we're talking about wealth building. So in order for that to happen, you have to start the ball, so to speak. It starts with you. And we've given you an outline so that you can get started. But the most important thing is to be able to not only learn what you need to learn and do what you need to do, but you need to teach your kids. And you need to model your financial behavior in front of them so they can not only hear what you say, but they see what you do.
You model it, and I'm going to give it a statistic, and no doom and gloom, but I need to say this. In 2064, the average white family will likely possess $2,782,000 in wealth, while the black family's wealth will be about $789,000.
I want to stop right there. Now, and you come back to your point, but I just want to throw this in here real quick. The reason why that is very, very, very simple. We get caught up in spending. They focus on savings.
And so understand, that's a 70% disparity. That's huge. And if we don't talk about it, if we don't think about it, we're going to be so far behind.
Right. And the only way to change it is to be aware of it, to want to change it, to have a plan to change it, and then to go do it. Be like the Nike commercial. Just do it. Be consistent, be focused, and be relentless, Malik. You got to be wealth building is a lifestyle, to be honest with you. It's a lifestyle. It's just like the person who goes to the gym. It's just like the person who runs 5 miles a day. It's just like the person who does this every single day or does this every single week. Wealth building is a lifestyle.
It is a lifestyle, and it's not overnight. It is not. And again, we're not harping on it, but we got to understand it. While growing up, only 10% of black Americans discuss the stock market, while 37% of the white counterparts discuss the same stock market.
Yeah, and we're not trying to make this a black-white thing. We're not trying to make this a racial thing. We're just showing the difference between what works and what has worked and what's not working.
Right. And so understanding that, and we can look at all this on Pew Research, but understanding that when we build wealth, it helps the community. It helps your family. You don't have kids who come out of school with debt, right? We want to think about all of those things. We are such a now society. We want it instantly, that if we don't sacrifice now, right? And we're playing catch up in a lot of ways. I remember one of the pastors did the thing with Monopoly. They said, everybody else is going around the board 3 times before we do. Start where you're at. I'm not trying to get caught up where someone else is at. Start where you are and understand that, it's not about catching up. I'm not trying to catch anybody. I'm not trying to
be like anybody.
Right. I want to be who I am. And you know what? With the right idea, with the right plan, you might be all right.
Yeah. And I just want to be the best person that I can possibly be as a person, whole and complete, and do so financially. And do so financially by building wealth. Now, Malik, here's the deal. So I have just spent the last 30 years slowly building wealth. By the way, this is a make-believe scenario. Okay? This ain't me. All right?
Tell bar a dollar.
Yeah, this ain't me. Okay? I just spent the last 30 years building wealth. I'm 60. The benefit for me in wealth building is an opportunity that I create for other people. It's giving back. And giving back, and I'm encouraging people to think this way. If you are a wealth builder, and if you have wealth, and if you have the ability, I hope your heart tells you to give back to your community. I want to see those of us, those of you who are successful, who have built this wealth, to create jobs for young people, to create jobs for college grads, to create jobs for professionals, to create jobs for retirees. Why? Because you have accumulated wealth.
And that's the part of the entrepreneurship program that we talk about, right? Creating for others and starting foundations and not just giving your money away. We're not talking about that. We want, I'd rather you come in, I'd rather create a program and let other people to come work and design things like that. And I know some people, it's easy to write a check, but it's harder to get and create that program or something where people can come in and work, and it may be the local McDonald's. It may be something that you see as an opportunity to give back, and it's so important. We don't want to climb up so far and forget to reach back. And reaching back is so important. You and I, we met, Brett, volunteering, right? That's how we met years ago, right? We were giving back. Neither one of us, we didn't have to do what we want, but we did it because we loved the young people. We wanted to give back, and we did that. And giving back in those ways also allow people to come and talk and show that there are people who care about them.
Be a mentor.
Be a mentor.
Be a mentor.
Right?
Be a mentor to inspire other people. Inspire other people to say, I want what you got. I want to do what you did. Inspire our young people to want to be wealth builders. Think about it for a minute.
Right. And if they start early and we get them and teach them, right, what we weren't taught or we were taught much later in
Create
life.
some excitement for people who never thought about this before.
Oh my God.
You
That's so
understand what I'm
good.
saying?
That's so good.
I mean, think about it. We get, not to be negative, but we kind of get caught up in what we get caught up in. But let's create some excitement for people who never even thought about anything more than buying the newest pair of sneakers, the nicest car,
or video game.
the nicest video game. Nothing wrong with that stuff. Nothing wrong with that stuff. But no, I know you're gonna. There's nothing wrong with that stuff. But that's should be priority 4, 5, 6.
Right.
That can't be your top
Well,
priority.
if we can teach them to get some passive income, they can buy it with their passive
That's
income.
the point.
Right.
That's the whole point. That's the point. There's how you spend them. There's priority. There prioritize how you use your money. And the other thing that I'm a big believer in, this is what I would do, man, if I was wealthy. I would invest in our future. I would create scholarships. And I would create scholarships for STEM programs.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important for our people to not just learn, and there's nothing wrong with this. There's nothing wrong with learning the arts, right? Nothing wrong with learning. There's nothing wrong with language arts. There's nothing wrong with, creating those skill set. What is that term? I'm out of college so long. What is that term when you
Liberal arts.
liberal? Thank you.
Yeah, there
Thank
you go.
There's nothing wrong with a liberal arts degree. God bless y'all out there with liberal arts degree. I got one. You know what I'm saying? I got to work 20 jobs because I got a liberal arts degree, but that's okay. I would invest in STEM scholarships so that our young people can learn science, technology, engineering, and math. Because guess what? That's where the money is.
That's where the money is.
And wealth building does start with your income and your earning potential. And so I would invest in scholarships so that kids can go to business school, that they can go to finance school, so they can learn about business, learn about finance.
Engineering.
Because these are the things that we're not being taught.
No, of course, and if we to get exposed to them, I was blessed because my uncles, from the time I was a young man, they groomed me to be an engineer. Until I sat in that business class and I went and told them, you guys like engineering.
Look, you sat in the business class and then went across the street to that liberal arts class. I understand.
No, I got the degree in business, right? Because so I learned, right, that this was important, right? So I got that business degree. I got that master's in business, right? I wanted something. And so when we tell young people, every young person that comes to my office and they see those degrees on the wall, and I do it intentionally. I say, what do you guys see? And I say, you can't take that away from me. You can't. And so that's a part of wealth building. So like you had a mother, I had an uncle, and my uncle, this is what he would talk to me about. He said, the more time you spend in the library, young fella, the more money you gonna make. The more degrees you got, the more money you gonna make. And he wasn't lying.
Right. Now it comes down to what you do with those degrees now.
Exactly.
Because let's be clear about this. You don't have to be super duper educated in order to make money.
Oh no.
There's a thing out there called common sense. And there's a thing out there called just doing what makes sense. And you can take a common sense approach to wealth building. You don't have to be
super duper smart. No. This have nothing. Listen, I know some really, really, really not educated. I'm talking about no degrees. Now, a lot of them are of different races. I got a couple of guys that are Jewish that have never been to a school in their lives. In all school, let's think about some of our old school people, even the old school blacks when we were growing up. They were doing it. And they didn't have half the degrees we had.
The OGs.
Right. And so knowing that, no, this is not about getting college education. It helps, but like you talked about when we talk about those foundations, creating those STEM programs, those are the programs that the rest of the world are going to get. And we are competing and understanding that if we create those scholarships, if we do those things, we will help a lot of other people become successful.
Exactly. We're talking about opportunity. See, to me, the most important thing about building, when you look at our community, you look at our people, you look at where we're at and where we can be, what excites me about those who have built wealth is the opportunities that they can create for others. And so I would say, invest in our schools, invest in our after-school programs, invest in our for-school programs, invest in community recreational programs, invest in other community programs like family and neighborhood centers, so that you, Mr. or Mrs. I have built great wealth, can come into your community or come back to your community or pick a community that could benefit from the wealth
that you've accumulated. And it don't always have to be the stars. We always look into the stars and we see, this person gave the school systems 10 million or 20 million. You know what? We can all be stars, right? Be a star in your community. Be a star for your family. And the more, I'm just, this is just me. It seems like the more I give away, Brett, the more comes back to me.
The law of
giving, sowing, and reaping.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
It's true. Listen, my center, what we do is every month I tell someone on my staff to pick a foundation and we donate to that foundation. That's giving, right? The more you give, the more you're going to receive. So you can't hold on to it. So building wealth is not just for yourself. It's sometimes not even for your family. It's for others. And if you build that wealth, man, the more you build, I promise you will get it back in return.
Right. And regardless of who you are, we got to close this out. Regardless of who you are or where you came from or what your circumstances are, you can do it. Got to have that fire in your belly. Mm-hmm. Go out and get the help you need. Go out and get the advice you need. Put together a doable plan. Make sure your plan is doable. Make sure it's something that you can do. See, I can't do things that Malik can do, and Malik may not be able to do some things I can do. So Malik will put together a plan that works for him. I put together a plan that works for me. You put together a plan that works to you and start building wealth today.
All right. Yes. Brett, thank you so much, man. Again, I love what you just said as we wrap it up. It is really about mindset. It's mindset. And we can get people to change the mindset, understanding why it's important. If I put in my head, if my mindset, this is important. This is important for my family. It's important for other families. It's important for generations to come. Then you know what? We're gonna be a really, we gonna close that gap from 700,000 and 264 to we're gonna be right there with them.
And we can do that one family at a time, one street at a time, one neighborhood at a time. If everybody just just changed that mindset you talked about, change that lifestyle that you talked about, and go from being spenders to wealth builders.
There it is. You know what? Thanks so much for a wonderful show. We want to thank all of our listeners as always. You know, we can't do this without you guys. We thank you. You know, we can be reached again on Instagram at Men to Men Podcast. We can be reached on Facebook, Men to Men Podcast, SoundCloud, and also YouTube. And so, you know what? Thank you guys. You have a great week, and we'll see you again next week. Have a great day or great evening.